Hey folks, this is a game between two intermediate players, mightymax85 and myself, on chess.com. I was white, he was black. I believe I won this game in dominating fashion. I think the final score was 34-17. So I pretty much got with him. I gave him the business. But this is how the game played out. I moved my pawn up to d4. He moved his pawn up to d5. I moved my knight out to f3, protecting my pawn, and he moves his knight out to c6. I move my knight out to c3, threatening his pawn on d5. And then he protects it with his knight to f6. And it's not really like I could take that pawn anyway because his queen is there protecting it. I then move my pawn up to e3. He threatens my knight, moving his bishop down to g4. I then protect the knight, moving my white bishop, up to e2. And then he moves his pawn down to e6. And I decided to castle because I didn't want my king in the middle of the battlefield. And I have my three pawns there on f, g, and h2 protecting my king. He has three bodyguards there protecting him, so I felt like this was the best time to castle. And I've been doing a little studying, and they say that it's best to castle early in the game, so I decided to do that. And I'm starting to take control of the four center squares. And it's always good, like I said before, to have control of the four center squares on the board. He threatens my pawn down there on h2 with his bishop to d6. And I just move my pawn up, giving my king further protection. I have a little pawn chain over there. Then he moves his knight down to b4. I didn't know what that knight was going to do. I'm terrified of knights. You can ask my friend Jason on Yahoo Messenger. So I just moved the pawn up to back him up. And that's exactly what he did. Moved his knight back up to c6. I then moved my pawn up because I want to, like I said, take full control over the center part of the board. He castles. That's kind of what I wanted. So now I have to shift my focus towards the right side of the board. The F, G, and H files. So I can try to somehow attack that king. He threatens my rook. He see that there's an open position there. So his bishop threatens my rook. And I just move my rook to the side because you don't want to lose your rook. That's the most powerful piece besides the queen. So he moves his knight down. Once again, I'm scared of these knights. And I move my pawn up the e file to e4. I see that I have control there and I can take his pawn. But then he protects it by moving his knight back up to f6. So if he takes my pawn, then I can take his pawn with the bishop, and then he'll probably take it with the knight. So I threaten his knight, keep his knight on lock, because his knight no longer can move, because then his queen would be exposed, and I would take his queen. So he sees that. So what he does is he tries to push my bishop off with his pawn, and that's what he did. So I just decided to move back to d2. Then he moves his pawn down to gf. So he's trying to close in on my king, I see. So what I do is I just try to get one of these pieces out the way. So now he got to give up one of those pieces. So I realized here that no matter what takes place, I'm going to leave with more pieces. Because he takes my pawn, I take his knight, he take my bishop, and I take his bishop. So now I killed more of his men, and he only got about one of my minor pieces. My what did he take? I forgot. Okay, So then he threatens my queen with his bishop to g4, and I just take him with my knight. He takes my knight, and then I take his knight. So that's what I was talking about. I was moving ahead too fast. So I got both of his bishops and both of his knights, and he has just one of my knights. He only has one of my knights. So like I said, I was going to leave with more pieces. When the smoke cleared, I was going to have more men standing. He just took one knight. That's all he took. One knight and 2 pawns. So what is that? That's 8, worth 8 pieces, 8 points. 2 pawns. I mean, 1 knight. That's 3 points. And then 2 pawns. That's 5 points. And I took 2 of his bishops. That's 6. And 2 of his knights. That's 12. So I'm like, 12 to 5 right now. Not that points matter. But he threatens my queen by moving his pawn down to f5. And I just simply move my queen up to h5. And he sees that I'm trying to take his pawn right there on h6. So he protects it by moving his queen down to f6. I move my pawn up to f4. Because I'm trying to attack that pawn there over on h6. And he moves his queen down to d4, putting me in check. So I had no other choice but to move my king up. He moves his queen back up to f6. And I decided to just take his pawn there, because even if he take my pawn, which he did, I could have taken his queen, but I wanted to take his pawn out right there on f5, so that I can move my queen. My bishop will have a free path up to h6, or I can even move my queen up to h6, and then that'll be checkmate. So that's what I was trying to do, but he didn't take the piece. So instead I just threatened his queen by moving my bishop to g5. He moved his queen out the way, and then I moved my rook up. So now I'm really closing in on his king. I move my rook up to e6. So there's really little he can do at this point. I thought he would move his rook all the way over to e8, threatening my rook, but that's not what he did. So I threaten his queen now. Now his queen is mine. I take his queen because he can't move his queen out the way. There's nothing he can really do. He can't move his queen out the way because he can't move into check. So now he's in a really tough spot here. So he decides to take my knight, and I really didn't care about that because I'm closing in on his king. And I take his queen. He takes my rook. And then I put him into check. My bishop there is protecting me. And he moves up. I put him into check again, leaving him with only one space to go, and that's to h8. He moves to h8. I put him into check again. And he takes my bishop. That was his only move. And then I take his rook, putting him into check again, and then I can take his other rook. And that's where he quit, because it was pretty much over after that. All I had to do was move my rook there on a1 over to e1 after I take his rook, and it was pretty much checkmate. There was nothing he can do. And then I had my bishop there waiting to come up that diagonal and take that pawn out. So it was really nothing he can do, but it was a good game nonetheless. But I won in dominating fashion, as you see, 34-17. Peace.